Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversations are pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Did you bring your thinking caps? Because it's time to put them on. Because the conversation starts now. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. You back at the location, the spot right here. You see that? Where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Today, we have a nurse's nurse, nurse coach Bina Bendale. I was sick yesterday, Brains, and I was at the ER. Let me tell you, I told them that I was going to be talking to Nurse Bina today, and they said, really? What are you going to talk to her about? And I said, all things good nursing, how you can build resilience, how that you know that you're valuable, that you know your worth, that you're respected in this space, that you speak up, that you don't argue with the doctors, but sometimes you have to challenge them. And then what do you do when you decide to exit out of this angel giving opportunity? Because nurses and teachers are angels on earth, whether you believe it or not. I was there in the hospital, and I was just looking at how they were treating the unsheltered people. They treat them with love and care and dignity. And I mean, some of them was off the chain, and they had mental challenges, and they talked to them just as sweet and kind, and they loved and they cared for them. There was no judgment there. So we're going to talk about that because that takes a lot of work. So thank you for joining me today, Nurse Bina. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Can I call you Nurse Bina? I like that.
You can call me Nurse Bina or Nurse Coach Bina.
Nurse Coach Bina. So tell us, what is a nurse's coach?
So, a nurse coach is a holistic modality that we use to actually help everyone. We don't just only focus in on nurses. So, we help, it's a new specialty that is coming out. So, we are now all board certified. So, just like how you were to have a nurse practitioner's degree, we now have a nurse coaching degree. So we now are entrepreneurs. We have all of us have our own businesses, and we help other people get to where they want to be and helping them slow themselves down so they can be a better person for themselves and to be a better person to give to the world. We're bringing nursing back to its core, really going back to the connections. Sitting here with you, April, connecting with you, having a conversation with you, talking about your experience that you had last night in the ER, and then helping you through your pain and sufferings and comes up and just want you to be really happy. That's what we're here for.
Well, I see a lot of traditional nurses going into the holistic space, going into alternative integrated medicine, going into hospice, going into grief recovery, because you are there right at the pinnacle every single day between life and death, between good and evil, making a decision, dealing with the families. But then you have to come home and look in the mirror after a 12 or 14-hour shift.
Right. And processing that. And that's what we really train other nurses and everyone else that goes to the ERs or has these life-changing events. How do you process that? Right? So that's what nurse coaches do. We help people really process their emotions in a very healthy way. Because like when I was working in the ER, I'd come home, I was exhausted, and I would be in nurse mode, right? Because you don't have time to process. We're from patient to patient to patient. We have 1 minute to maybe pee, and then a code that comes in, a trauma that comes in, and we just go from one room to another room and not realizing how we're really processing our own emotions. So with nurse coaching, what we do is we really help people process those emotions in a very healthy and holistic way.
Okay, you say healthy and holistic. Is this through meditation? Is this through talk therapy? Is this a nice happy hour once a week? What
It
is
depends.
tell me a little bit about what that could be.
So a lot of people do different things. So I do a lot of sound energy. I do a lot of energy healing. I know nurse coaches that do tapping. I know nurse coaches that do visualization. I know we ask a lot of powerful questions to really
Mm,
help you look internally.
okay.
We do a lot of breath work because the minute you hone into yourself, the minute you really realize what you powers you have within you and heal yourself from the inside, that's when you're going to be feel the most joy. People teaching people, like, if you had a really long day in the ER, you come home, especially during COVID was the best example, and you come home and you see a lot of death. How do you process that? How do you release all that anger or energy, or it comes in a healthy way? So we teach people how to meditate. We teach people how to slow down. We do a sound healing meditation, or we do breath work to release all those tensions, because those tensions stays with us. That's when we get the shoulders, we lock our shoulders, we get headaches, we get into different situations in a physical way because our mental capacity is still, just processing what just happened, and you never
And
deal
the
with it.
scary thing is that um, it's peer to peer. Because
Yeah.
another thing that the nurse whispered to me, and she told me there's a lot of bullying in the industry. And it's unfortunate. And I was so disappointed. I really was. But
Yeah.
the team that serviced me, they were magical. There
Yeah.
was three of them. Here, let me go get this for you. Let me run and take the labs for you.
Yeah.
You need me to take her to, get the CT scan. Here's what the doctor said. I mean, they worked in harmony together.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard that you're dealing with these patients. One of the nurses told me that one of the patients bitter.
Yeah.
And the family, they're angry with you because their loved one is not getting the care that they feel, but it's not
Right.
in our control. It's in God's control.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But let's flip it. Tell me some of your success stories. Tell me some of the great things that you've done as a nurse coach, as well as a nurse.
So as a nurse, I've been a bedside nurse for 17 years. I got my master's as a clinical nurse leadership, um, and I loved it. I loved every minute of being bedside. I miss it every day. But yes, there's a lot of stuff that I miss. There's a lot of stuff I don't miss. I'm not gonna lie. I don't miss the bullying. I don't miss a lot of the political stuff that people talk about. But as a nurse coach, I have, I've done things that in less than a year, you okay? In less than a year has not accomplished. I am actually one of the first nurse coaches to land a large corporational deal. I help employees. I go into large organizations and I become an added benefit to the system. So, as well as an EAP system or an EAP program, I am now an added program into corporations where people can talk to me in lifetime as a nurse coach. So I help them and I enhance their wellness programs. So employees can talk to me. They go on my website or my QR code, and then they have a session, and they have sessions with me with wherever they are in life. So whether they talk about their children with special needs, they can talk about their confidence. They talk about whatever it is that they want to focus on, and I really help them through those process to actually
Mhm.
make them feel more content at home, so they thrive better in their workspace.
I love this business model. I love this niche. Praise, let me tell you, when I was in corporate America, what was that? Once upon a time,
Yeah.
we had the coolest HR. I'm telling you, the company was so progressive. We had a masseuse that would come in. You could go in and get a chair massage.
Yeah.
We had employee systems programs where you could call someone like Nurse Bina and, offload. I think they were more on the psychology tip, though.
Mm.
Maybe if you had drug and alcohol problems or domestic violence. We had uh, a program where they would pay for prepaid legal service. I mean, this company was just unbelievable.
Mm.
But now I love what you're doing because it's confidential.
Yes.
You are you're a friend, you're someone they can offload to.
Yes.
And you have a better workforce, a more productive workforce when they know that they can go and have someone to talk to and not judge them. Oh, well, I see that she's coming in and she's looking kind of disheveled and she's always on the phone and she's not getting her work done. Well, you don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe you have a child that is acting out or has special needs. Maybe there's something wrong with your physical health, and you don't want your employer to know that, because they will judge you. They'll say,
Yeah.
oh, okay, because X, Y, and Z, yeah, we may not have to let you go. I had one situation. One of my guests realizes she had ADHD, and she's 35 years old.
Yeah.
She wasn't diagnosed, and they didn't give her special accommodations. They terminated her.
Yeah. And that's really why it's so important for every company to have a nurse coach, because
Absolutely.
we understand the medical aspect of things, and we also understand the mental aspect and the spiritual aspect. So a lot of people who come to me, there is actually a particular parent that did come to me with, the company didn't know that she had a child with special needs. And the minute she spoke with me, it was like opening up a can of worms. She never felt so heard in her life.
Mm,
She just said, all I wanted
wow.
was for someone to listen and to hear me, not to give me advice
Right. Right.
or
Absolutely.
not to judge me. And she says, every time I talk about it, people judge me. And that's the number one thing nurse coaches will never do. We will never judge. We keep it confidential, but we keep it fully in the space of what that particular client needs.
Is this a benefit that's provided by the corporation, or is this a benefit that the employees have to pay into?
So it depends on the corporation. Usually the corporations that I'm talking to, they pay for my services, and then the HR is able to refer me per client. But there has been times when a couple of companies have came up to me and I was able to advertise however I wanted to advertise, but then the employees would have to pay for my services. So it
Okay.
just really depends. I'm trying to get it where the corporations can pay,
Right.
because as a wellness being, especially with this whole time, with layoffs happening, with the recession going on, with different things happening, the mental state for employees they're really like on edge,
They're fragile.
and
They're
they're
very
really
fragile.
fragile. And so it's like, for me, it's just like, I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel like if they have to talk about finances, or if they have to talk about a bad day that they have in the morning, and they're really worried about, say if their spouse got laid off and now they're really worried about different aspects of things, they're able to come talk to me without having to go to coworkers or without having to go to their boss, and have that safe space to really give them that motivation that they need to keep moving, so that way they also may or may not lose their job or go down in that spiral of that negative guilt, or what are we going to do, how are we going to make ends meet, to holidays, you know, how are we going to pay for how are we going to pay for certain things that we were planned on paying for, and really giving them that safe space to be vulnerable, to
Right.
cry,
Well,
and
you know
to
what? If there's
motivate
a
them.
will, there's a way. And I
Yeah.
figure, everything happens for a reason. It really does.
Yes, I really do.
A friend of mine was the big time news director for television, and she got fired. And she talked to me, and I just listened. And after she listened, I told her, bravo. Because, honey, you have not lived until you've been laid off or terminated. It's a part of the process, because there is a certain resilience that you build in that
Right.
space, that you will always have a side hustle, that you'll always
Yeah.
kind of unfortunately be looking at your employer with a side eye, because you don't never know where the shoe is going to drop. But
Right.
also, you're going to look inside yourself and say, you know what?
Exactly.
Is this really what I wanted to do? Is this the gateway? Is this the opportunity that I've been looking for, that I've been able, that I've been dodging the bullet and haven't stepped out on faith? Who's there to support me? Who's there to encourage me? Who's there to
Right.
motivate me? I'm
And
excited about this. So, yeah,
and
it could be an exciting
people think
opportunity.
and people think that growth happens when you're happy. Everyone
No,
always says, "Oh, I'm successful. I have growth. I did X, Y, and Z." That's great. But the number one time when growth happens is when you fall.
absolutely.
That is when you internally internalize yourself. You
That's right.
evaluate yourself. You evaluate your goals. What happened to you? What is most important in your life?
Right. Right.
You go back and evaluate that. And that is when you do the most developmentally grow. That's when you grow the most mentally. because you will grow out that you will get more success and you will now know, have more clarity of that did not work. We're not going to do that again. I
right?
really needed to come up. And now guess what? I'm going to make sure I have a year's worth of income in my bank account, not just 6 months. And you plan for those things because now you know. And sometimes when people think, they're like, well, you're not going to know until you know what happens. And that's like the biggest thing. And growth always comes when you're at the lowest points.
Exactly. And I tell people what I learned when I turned 60 was when I woke up, I had an epiphany. How am I going to respond to things? It took me 60 years to ask myself that question. It's not what happens to you, but sometimes it's happened for you.
Right.
And how do we process these things? We have to allow ourselves the time to grieve. It is a grieving
Yeah.
process to step back and take a deep breath and, try to see the forest for the trees. Try to understand that it's not personal, it's
Exactly.
business. It's like a bad relationship. I've had some
Yeah.
divorce coaches on, and what they try to say is after you get through the emotion, now you got to work on the strategy. So let's
Exactly.
talk about some fun things. What do you do to offload? Now you're taking on a lot of other people's concerns, their issues, their drama. It can't just go in one ear and out the other because I can see by your face you're very compassionate. Okay.
Thank you.
And I see a lot of empathy there. What do you do for self-help and to release that for you?
Honestly, I'm with my husband and I'm with my 3 kids. I have 2 kids with special needs. I have an ADHD child. I have a child that's nonverbal autistic, and I have a spicy, spicy little daughter of mine who is basically a mini me.
Wow.
And seeing their joy, running around with them, taking them to parks, taking them to the zoo, teaching them different things in life, and watching their skills develop
Mm-hmm.
is honestly like hands down. Like, I can't change that for the world because that's what grounds me. That's what everything else doesn't matter because
See,
that
that's
is my solid
that's
heart. That
beautiful
is
because
my
honey, I
foundation.
would I would try to give me a hotel somewhere after taking on people's stuff and then coming home and dealing with the day to day because that's a lot. And I know it's
Yeah,
a lot of love that goes into it, but I would have to decompartmentalize because me personally, I would be the kind of person that it would take on another form. I'm a hard charger. I go, 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 go,
yeah,
and I don't stop until I'm made to stop. So I give you, kudos absolutely that you're able to do all that and help others. But a lot of people have that capacity, and I'm glad that you're one of them. So now you have 2 children with special needs. Do you homeschool
mhm.
them?
No, so my eldest, Rohan, he is a nonverbal autistic. He is in school, so he's in a special day class. My youngest is in the process of IEP, so we're starting the whole process again.
Mhm.
He's in TK in the school system. So
Mhm.
I do believe enriching them in different environments. If that's what's best for them, then I want them out of the house, learning, getting messy, having just
Socializing, absolutely.
socializing, whatever it is that they need. And that's why, like on the weekends, we're very, very adamant. Me and my husband are very adamant to take them out and explore new environments. It doesn't have to cost much. We go to different parks, different areas, to the beach, and then we just teach them like what the water does, where the tadpoles are. My daughter likes to see, the starfishes and some of the rock pools
Mhm.
in Monterey. Um,
That's
so
beautiful. That's
like those
beautiful.
types of stuff, like
Outdoors,
we do.
outdoors is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So now I'm getting in your business, but you got to find a babysitter because you got to give your man some time. You got,
I honestly have.
I've been married 38 years. Okay. And I know that you guys are madly in love, but just that rekindling because it's hard. It's really hard.
Yes.
And you give your kids everything. I have another guest that was on my show, and she shared something with me very personal. She said how she resented her brother because he had
Mm,
special needs and
yeah.
because she felt that there were certain times that she didn't have that one-on-one,
Mm.
and people don't realize that. I mean, they get so, blanketed by the situation that there's love, but you're still a very beautiful woman. I'm sure he's a very handsome man. And just you two walk on the beach and hold hands does something to revitalize you and get your feet wet, because the kids are going to be fine. And we love kids. I only had one girl. I didn't have the courage to have more than one. I was like, it's too much work. So,
I actually am very blessed. It took me 8 years to find someone that I fully trust.
mm,
We actually have um, a male Manny,
oh,
and
that's
yeah,
nice.
yep, and he is fantastic with my kids.
Mm.
And he's actually he was my son's old RBT, and he's been in
What's
my house for,
RBT? Is that a
so
teacher?
it's the ABA therapy. So he was the person
Oh,
that comes
okay.
into my house for the one-on-one support for Rohan.
Wow.
And he's been in my house for about almost 4 years now. And then last year I stole him from his company. I can say that publicly now because like I was just like, I had nanny issues. I couldn't come up. We kept quitting on me. They kept coming up. I had to work in the ER. I had to keep getting called off, talking about being bullied. I was like labeled as the person who called off all the time because I didn't have
Well,
babysitting. But what do you do when you don't have babysitting? Someone has to watch your kids,
and
right?
it's somebody that you can trust and understand
Right.
your children's needs.
Exactly. Because Rohan is very violent. He can get very violent at times, but he's very structured based, right? And he's also a bolter. So he runs out of my house, or he'll
Oh
run
my
out of the
goodness.
backyard, or he'll run to something else. Or if you're in the street, he'll run to the light post or to the squirrel. Like he's just one of those kids that just keeps, and he doesn't
Right.
talk. So he's very quiet about it. One minute he's there, the next minute he's gone. And then you're just like, where'd my kid go?
Does he speak
Uh,
sign?
he does. Yep.
Okay.
And he does now have an AAC device, which is a talker that is a keypad that he's able to push buttons, and it generates a sentence.
Wow.
So he now uses that, which has helped tremendously because now he'll say, Rohan goes walk, Rohan goes, to the park. He'll tell us now
Wow.
what he wants instead of just trying to run towards it.
Right.
Uh,
Well, thank you
and
for sharing that with us, because
yeah,
that was, that's deep, because there's another mother, nurse, teacher that's out there that thinks that, I'm the only one that's going through this. Nobody
mhm.
else has, nobody else is going through this but me. Now, let's talk about some fun things. I'm going to ask you some fun questions. And
Sure,
you tell me, if you were a bird in the sky, what bird would you be?
an eagle.
Why?
They're very sharp. They have very sharp eyes, and they can see, I think, over a mile away,
Hmm.
and they're just very beautiful.
Yeah.
And they're gracious.
They are, and they
And
have
they're
a
sharp.
huge wingspan that can cover a large
Yeah.
area. And I think that that is you. And that,
Yeah.
you can see things from an eagle eye perspective from the top
Yeah.
down. So that pretty much fits your characteristics. If you had three wishes, what would they be?
Oh,
Anything.
more understanding in the special needs population.
Mm,
Honestly, I really, if anyone's hearing that's a mom, a dad, a parent, a grandma comes in, that is very dear to me. More understanding of how we live our lives because we're not normal in the sense of normal, typical. The other wish is I want everyone to really honestly be happy with what they have, not what they want, not what they desire.
mhm.
Live within your means and be
Oh
happy with what
gosh.
you have.
Right.
And then,
Gratitude is latitude, and it'll
yeah.
change your attitude for sure.
And the third is mutual respect back to people.
Mm.
People just forget, especially with COVID, people just don't say hi to each other anymore. They just walk away. You cough and they run away. You sneeze and like, oh my God, you're giving me, you're
I,
infected.
I know, I know, I know.
And it's like that commonality of just having a community sense back, being able to hang out with your neighbors, being able to just go down the street and say hi to everybody and rebuilding that community back, because that sense of respect, and that goes with families, friends, community, teachers, what jobs. If people just had respect for each other, I think this world would be a lot more happier.
Well, I think that there's hope. I look at
Yeah,
this last election cycle that we had, and a lot of people split their decisions. They said, I
yeah,
agree with this, but I don't necessarily agree with that. And
right,
it showed the world that we are not these barbarians, that we
right.
have been portrayed, that there is some civility, and that people are listening. People are listening when you don't think they're listening, like your kids. My daughter told me one time, she was 7 years old. I'll never forget it. She says, I watch and hear every single thing you do. And she looked at me with that little eye squinted, and I was like, oh my God. Well, I better try to be a good example, and you are a great example of a great woman, a woman
Thank
with
you.
courage, a woman that gives everything that she has, and still trying to carve out a niche for herself. What do you want your legacy to be, nurse coach Bina?
Oh, honestly, I want, I want, I want all companies to honestly have a nurse coach in their organizations. I really do believe that is going to help the world. And I also want to have parents with special needs feel fully supported. I eventually want to open up a center where my dream is that in the front of my center, I want all the parents with special needs to have services provided for their child. Speech, speech therapy, OT, physical therapy, ABA therapy, also with their siblings, so they'll have a playground and other activities for other siblings that if needed. But in the back, I want to take care of the parents. I
Mm,
want to be able to give them that one-on-one support, whether it's a massage chair, whether it's acupuncture, whether it's sound healing, whether it's breath work that they want to do, whether it's one-on-one coaching that they need to discuss, whether they want IEP advice. That way, while their kids are being services, they are also being serviced at the same time. Give them that space instead of waiting in the parking lot for an hour while their kid is being serviced, or driving around with two other kids like I had to do,
right.
and pray that there's two other kids are not going to scream and shout while my eldest was having therapy at a clinic. So eventually that is what my legacy wants. I want to build that center up to help not only parents but to help the kids at the same time and to support
Dreams
them.
come true. Let me tell you, there's been some magical things that happen here. Where are you at?
I'm in Dublin, California.
Okay, brains. If you have a big office space that you're not utilizing right now, I want you to contact Nurse Coach Bina. I've put this call out before, and let me tell you, you can work with her. Do you see what she's doing? This is bigger than her. And the special needs population is huge. Your child could be, very functional, but still be on the spectrum. You could be an adult, like my other client was, 35 years old, and realize that they have special needs and not be
Yeah,
judged. You could be a
yeah,
corporation right now that has 2 or 3 super fantastic employees, but you can't figure out why they're not engaged because there's something going on. They need somebody to
yeah,
talk to. So you need to hire Nurse Bina, okay, to contact you, work with you, if nothing else for consultation, because she knows and she cares. Thank you so much. You are a beautiful soul. You really are. Like I
thank
told
you.
you, nurses are the greatest people on the planet. Yep, they are.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Absolutely. Tell my brains how to get in contact with you.
You can contact me on my website. It's binanursecoach.com. And you can also email me at binanursecoach.com.
All right. You heard that, brains. BinaNurseCoach.com. Now I need you to go in, oops, and turn the card around. How about that? And love, like, share, and subscribe right here on the edge. You see this address right here? I'm going to put it real close so you can see it. Love, like, share, and subscribe. There's a lot of great information. If you are a nurse and you're in this space and you're struggling, before you blow a gasket, reach out, give her a call. If she doesn't help you, she's got a slew of other colleagues that can give you what you need. Okay. Thank you so much. Bina, nurse coach. You are the best.
Thank you.
Bye, Grace.